Welcome back to another episode with my friend from the Smoke and Mirrors podcast, Mr. Rob. We both got the same name.
Hey, y'all, Rob.
We're
Tale of Two Robs.
Tale of Two Robs. That's going to be the name of this episode, and that's all. Give yourself a pat on the freaking back, man. What is up? It's been a little bit.
Thanks, man. I know, man. Yeah, it has been. It's basically the same, I think. Still in COVID. Still going through it, man. How about
Still,
you?
still doing film reviews. Still talking. Shooting the breeze. Now I have the hugest question for you. So Australia, for instance, you live in that wonderful
Yeah,
place where it's warm. You're wearing a short sleeve right now. I'm wearing a hoodie. That's big climate change difference. But you are going to be the
yeah.
first country that is going to ban Google.
I seen this. This is weird. Or try to get Google to, or Google will try to get us to pay a fee to use their services.
You're gonna have to go back to fucking Bing, dude. Can you imagine
I never.
that?
So I've never even used fucking Bing. I didn't even know what Bing's all about. So this is just weird for me. You know what I mean?
I was reading it. I was like, all right, it makes sense the way they're coming at it. It's because a lot of the advertisement and revenue money was lost with the fact that Google just doesn't their own system. So they were like, let's bring it back to the businesses on our search engines and stuff, which a lot of
Yeah.
countries are pushing against. But I was like, imagine that. Like, you can't even say Google it. You'd be like, we don't have Google. It's like, where the fuck are you from where you don't have Google?
Yeah. Can you imagine saying that your country outlawed Google?
I mean,
It's
is it
fucking wild.
is it for the do you think that's a good thing or a bad? I mean, it's gonna make it harder for you to be able to like look up movie trailers unless you guys have like another source to go to.
We would have another source. I would make another source. Like, we definitely find other avenues, but Google's so convenient. And then my mailbox is tied to it. I've got certain accounts that use a Google login for it. You know what I mean? Like, they've done well to kind of like infiltrate every possible way to sort of access your personal accounts. So, like, if Australia shuts Google down in Australia, I'm fucked.
It's like I want to create not a search engine, but I want to create like an app. Like I would love to do something like Google. I wish I had like the skills to be able to create something like that, but I wouldn't call it Google. Like Google just sounds like a child playing with like Play-Doh where it's not really
Yeah.
forming into anything. It's like, oh, we're just gonna call it this. It's like, is it edible? Like if you try to let's let's go back 5,000. No, let's go back not even that far. Let's go back like 500 years. Okay, me and you are gonna walk up to maybe a couple of guys that are doing an adventure like a bro trip, we would say, but they're on a pirate ship. So we would go to them and be like,
Okay.
hey, where's your guys Google? What do you think they would think when we said that?
I think they'd get out their spy watch, their spyglass, and they'd be like, "Have a fucking look, mate." You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be like, a Google like to look.
Yeah, like, hey, where's your Google? What's a Google? Well, it's a search engine. Oh, you want to? We look through. We search with this, and they just pull up a freaking spyglass and start looking through it. It's like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Google is this amazing thing. It's a vast, vast array of information. It has everything. It's a web search, so you can search anything on the internet. And then you say internet, they're like, we
What the fuck are you talking about?
what fruit is that and where can I find it? It's like, oh, well, okay. It's something where there's a lot of intelligence, a lot of information that you can seek, and it's at the touch of your fingertips. But at the same time, most of the population just looks up trailers and fucking porn and God
Porn.
knows what. And they're like, what's porn? It's like, oh bro. Don't you wish
It's
you
like
could
what you get in the brothel, but you're watching it for free.
Don't you wish you could go back in time and see that first spark? Like who was that guy? Who was that person that decided to use the internet in that intention? Like that's where the slip up
Ah.
of humanity went. Like what would happen if we never
Mm-hmm.
did that? Like what will we be a perfect society? Will we all be in crystal buildings like Fortress of Solitude type shit? But then you
Yeah.
just see the freaking branch off where it's like one dude's like, guys, guess what I found? It's like, what'd you find? It's like, I found a place called Pornhub. And you're like, oh, what is that? That's so interesting. And then next thing you know, you just see the
Yeah.
decline of humanity just fucking tumbling down.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind that's what 16 to whatever age you still look up porn at. That's what they're doing in the wee hours of the morning. As soon as you're up, I think that's when the need to masturbate hits, and it's like the lonely hours of the morning.
I had a better perspective of pirates when someone that I talked to who like studies like history in the pirate era started talking about how the fact that like most of the pirates were gay. And I was like, what do you mean? Like they're these manly things that we see, like Johnny Depp on fucking screen. Like it's this manly thing. He goes,
Exactly.
that's not true because they spent so much time on ships where they would miss their wives with the amount of depression that would go on. A lot of them would just start fucking each other. And I'm like, oh my god, like, you really look at on screen when you see any pirate movie now, you're like, "Did Blackbeard really was he a badass, or was he, like, the type that was, like" they call him Blackbeard for something else because the carpets match the drapes, you know what I'm saying?
I think you could be right. Maybe back in the day it was Pirate Hub.
Pirate Hub, and you fucking what, you sent pictures in a bottle and just threw it out in the ocean, and hopefully some person would get it before a pelican picked it up and flew off with your porn images?
Yeah, big time. And then someone has a yargasm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why they called it the poop deck. It wasn't just for taking a dump on it.
Hell no. Hell no.
Is that a period you would want to go back to though? Like, would you want to, if you had to pick a moment in time? Like, I know me and your brother talked about like the Viking era and stuff. I just,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go back to a point where it was so simple, but if I would just want to go back like 50 years, I feel like 50 years isn't too bad. You know, like for instance, the show WandaVision, is it good or bad? Have you
Hmm.
seen it?
I've watched all the episodes that are out now.
Okay.
I I think that it's a show that you'd probably enjoy more binging than watching week to week. Because what they're showing you is they're not showing you a lot. They're caught up in the deceit of what's like, them replicating old 60s, 70s, 80s shows, but they're not showing you behind the curtain. And that's where the interesting story is. You know what I mean? So
What
they play those genres.
what's the time period that they're taking place in? Like, is it the 20s or something? Like, it seems like old school when I was watching the trailer for it.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. It's probably uh like 60s, 70s.
The
Like
only
that's I think where when the shows are set.
The only reason I would want to be a historian is I would really have so much fun trying to explain history to people in my own terms. Like if you asked me to explain the 20s, I would be like, it was an era where there was, bell-bottom dresses, nobody gave a shit, the Fonz was awesome. Then there was a milkshake you could get at. That's like the only part I really liked about back then was like going to a diner, like all those experiences you see in movies where it was like that. I'm like, I hope it
Yeah.
was like that because that's paradise to me. Heaven is going into a diner and just getting a nice frothy milkshake. Like when not one where it's so thick
Mm,
where you're like, is this even, I'm breaking jaw muscles trying to get this thing fucking through the straw.
that is my favorite type of shake.
The
The
thick ones?
jawbreaker.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, man. So weirdly, I would go to McDonald's and I would ask them for a thick shake, extra thick. But McDonald's don't do extra thick shakes. They have one fucking setting for the shake. How stupid can you be? But every time I would ask them, I'd like a thick shake, extra thick. And they'd just look at me like, are you stupid? Because it's just a button that they push.
I didn't
It's not
even
like they
know.
can
I
go,
didn't
oh,
even
yeah.
know the shit worked. Half the time I use it, it doesn't work.
Yeah, man. So I like the extra thick shake.
Yeah, I
because it
mean,
lasts longer.
yeah, but you actually want to sit there and enjoy it, not just freaking be miserable trying to break a tooth trying to get a damn shake. Like, you ever been to Dairy Queen? Half the stuff's frozen. You can't stick your spoon in there. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, people are like, I want that extra cookie Oreo blast. And I'm like, what the fuck? You want an extra cookie Oreo blast that you can't even enjoy? You have to sit there and let it like decondensate, whatever the word is, where it just starts like melting a
Yeah,
little bit. I like
yeah,
I actually prefer that over when you get like an ice cream cone and it's melting so much like in your hands where it's dripping down the sides. You can eat it quick. I'm like, why don't you
yeah.
just put it in a freaking bowl or cone bowl? Something where I don't have to like, as a kid, that was probably the biggest issue for me was the aspect of like, I don't know how many times I would be walking on like my local attraction or boardwalk with like an
Hmm.
ice cream cone. And then it would just be
Yeah.
dripping all down the side and leaking all over to like my pants and stuff. And my mom's like, "We're supposed to be going out to dinner here. Like, I got you an ice cream cone, and it's melting all over you." I'm like, "I can't eat it fast enough. It's hard. It's impossible. My tongue gets cold. I get brain freeze. I got to sit there and ride that shit out for 35 minutes. Like, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense."
That was the first mistake, getting you the ice cream. I wonder if Dairy Queen also make their products that frozen so you can like by the time you get home, that's when you enjoy it. It's melted just enough. Do you think they factor that into the product? That'd be next level.
Do I think Dairy Queen that anybody at working at a Dairy Queen is smart enough to fucking calculate the percentage of time it takes for you to ride home and then factoring maybe the time that you might live a good distance away, maybe an hour, to the point where just when you get home your ice cream is edible? I that sounds like Ben and Jerry's. That doesn't sound like Dairy Queen to me.
I would be thinking like a 20-minute radius. Like if you're stopping at a Dairy Queen an hour before you're gonna eat it at home, that's wild.
Do you prefer wait times for your food? Like, cause for me, I feel like I prefer them. Like, I always loved it how Pizza Hut was like 30 minutes or less. It was an aspect of they were giving you a time ratio that was mostly always 30 minutes. It was never like you get it in 5. It was always 30 minutes. But I loved having that because it made you wait. And they just gave you a time frame. And it's a better time frame than you get when you go to like a cable company. Because a cable company is like,
Mm,
we'll be there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you're like, fucking thanks. Like, I'm going to leave my whole
yeah,
day open just to sit at home where you show up right at the last minute.
yeah. And then you look out the window like Lassie, just waiting for someone to come through. Nah, I'm a big fan of wait times, but the very precise wait times. I watch the driver on my Uber Eats app. I watch him when it says this driver will pick up your food. I will watch them from where they are, go to the restaurant, wait there, and pick up the food. That's a sick little thing that happens.
Does it get scary? Like, if he parks and he's like, why the hell is he at that gas station for 45 minutes? It doesn't take that long to get gas, man. My sub's getting cold.
100%. And that's when I message him. I'm like, what's happening? It says that you're at the place waiting, but in fact, you're nowhere near the place. It's happened to me a few times that I've had to like message them, and then they just say, "I'm very sorry, there was a long wait," and then like you just see the car move where they're like just zooming out to where they're supposed to be.
There was I did Uber Eats for a short time during like the start of the pandemic, I would say. And
Yeah,
so I mean it was good money, dude. Like I live in a beach town, so everything is pretty close by to each other. So like I would just
nice.
clock into the app maybe for an hour or two. That was it. And I would bring home like $300 in just 2 hours. But what I would do is
Wow.
I would go and like there's a Denny's right as soon as you get into like the main part of the town. There's just a Denny's sitting right off the bridge. Here's the difficult part. When we have all these tourists come in, they're like they move around to different hotels. So I remember I would just sit at the Denny's and I would be like, all right, here's the order, run in, grab it real quick, hop on my car, drive right down the road. There it is, go in there, give them their food, get paid $8 or something. And they tip me like 5. But people would switch to a different hotel and then not change their app. So then I would get one that was like from 54th Street all the way to like 126th Street, which is like a good couple miles. So then I would drive all the way down
Shit.
there between all this hard ass traffic. So it took back 25 minutes. I'd get there, knock on their door, or be like, food delivered, take a picture of it, and like, oh, we're not at there anymore. We're actually over here. And I'm like,
Too late.
you were right
That's
next door to the fucking Denny's. You could have went over there and grabbed it, but instead you made me drive all the way the wrong way. Then they didn't even tip me. That's the worst. And that's why one time, because I eventually, like, my best friend's his mom's boyfriend was like, he was the one that got me into Uber Eats. He was like, got me set up with the whole thing. He was like, dude,
Yeah.
when you get an order, scan it, say, yeah, you picked it up, but then wait. And I said, why wait? And he goes, because 50 other orders will come in and then you can pick them all and take them all and do it all in one run. And I was like, no freaking way. So I would just sit there, one order, swipe. But at Denny's, the main thing is you get a grand slam, which is way too
Mm.
much food for one human being to eat. Like this, it will feed a family of 5. It's like 4 biscuit. It's 4 biscuits, 3 eggs, omelets, like 3 giant egg omelets, 8 pieces of bacon, like 12 things of scrapple. It's like a fucking full-on buffet platter. Then there's like 4 things of
Jesus.
chocolate milk. There's 6 things of orange juice. So I would be like, all right, that's one order. And I would scan one order. So the back of my car was lined up with like 10 orders, like shit, 3 on the floor, like 6 on the seat, 2 in the passenger seat, buckled in. I put the seatbelt on it and shit. Dude, they were all in the same building. So I was like, I got to do this all in one run. But it's like one of those moments, like you ever have too much groceries in your car or you're going to bring it in, but you're like, we're doing this in one trip. I don't care if I break my hands.
Yeah.
That's me trying to open up doors in this apartment. I had like 80 trays. Eventually, I grabbed one of the luggage carts and I put it out by my car and I just stocked all the food on top of it. And I was just running down the hall, tossing food out like nothing.
Far out, man. People still like Denny's. Do you like Denny's?
I've only eaten there once, and I mostly go there because it's like dinner and a show. Because anytime you go like to a Denny's down here at like 3 a.m. or something, you're seeing a fight, you're seeing an argument, you're seeing something where it's like, just this is why I paid. Like, I don't even care about the chicken wings or anything. I'm just here to watch this person beat the shit out of that person with their weave.
I went there when we went to Vegas. That's where we went. Denny's. And it was the worst, like the busiest place, the worst service, and the food was horrible.
What
I
would
was
you
like,
cla-
why is
what would you classify as like a bad place to go out to eat? Like in your mind, what's like, okay, I actually have a couple of different sides here because worst place to eat based on the food, and then worst place to eat based on wait times.
shit? I think the worst place to eat based on wait times, I think in the States was probably Denny's.
How
So
fucking long are you waiting at Denny's, dude? It's like you just walk in, they're like, pick your seat. I'm like, where? They're like, any fucking where. I'm like, oh, all right.
for us, it was like a line up the escalator. Then it was like, okay, I can get you the coffees, but that milkshake that your son wants, you're going to have to wait on that. I was like, fuck, all right. And then when we ordered, the guy was like, yeah, it's probably going to be like a 35, 40-minute wait. We were like, fuck, we're out here on a day trip to Vegas. We're shooting back to LA that same day. And half of the time was spent at Denny's.
Sounds awful.
It fucking was, man. It was not worth the day. And then the best place to eat
No, no, worst place
based
to
on
eat
what?
based on food.
Ah, shit. Worst place to eat based on food. Damn. I don't know. Because I think it's that one off. Like sometimes you go to McDonald's, right? And you might not have the longest wait time. But the food is so old and it's dead from the heat lamps and the heat trays and shit that they have in the back there. That like everything tastes like dog shit.
First of
Like
all,
we had
if you're
nuggets.
ordering at McDonald's, then it's dog shit. Like I used to like it as a kid, and I get why it works if you're a parent because it's simple. But like when you become an adult and you realize like this is not like this, it's good, I guess, but it's like not good for you, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah, I like the taste. I enjoy McDonald's, man.
I like their
I am
sauce, and
like,
that's not enough to make me want to go back to McDonald's. I had a very bad experience with 3 chicken sandwiches after I got really stoned. And I think it was a combination of being way too high and eating 3 chicken sandwich. When you're high, your idea of what is enough is never what you think it is. I ordered a 20-piece
yeah,
McNugget after a concert. 20 is a lot of fucking nuggets, but I thought that was like easy. I thought that wasn't going to fill me up. I thought it was a snack. Oh, no, no, no. I
yeah.
got about 6 nuggets in and I was like, I am way too deep, way too deep.
What's your go-to sauce at McDonald's?
Honey mustard I mean, I've had a bad experience with honey mustard where I haven't had it in a long time, but that also I
Yeah.
blame the weed for that too, because what I love about pot, and I don't smoke it, but I'm an advocate for it, is the aspect that I believe it shows a piece of yourself, that stuff you need to fix, maybe things that you're lacking in your life, whether it's in your mind or whether it's in your physical. If you eat like shit and
Mm.
you get high, your body's going to make you sick and you're going to see how bad that is. So I remember I was like, back in the day, there's a honey mustard out there. Shout out to them. Ken Steak Sauce Honey Mustard. So I don't know if you've ever had this, but it's a giant yellow. It's like what you see in restaurants, like what they would serve to you at Applebee's or a fucking Chili's. It is amazing. But they sold it by like the gallon of how my grandma would buy it. So I remember I was like, well, she sent a container of it home. Like, here, this is Merry Christmas, whatever. Just tosses me this Ken steak. This was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I was like a junior in high school. So I grabbed it and I was living with at my dad's house at the time, and he would just put like I'm simple. I'm cheap. You want to talk about the worst place for me to get food is at a Ruth's Chris. I know people love that place, but if you're spending $80 on a dinner, that's too much. I only spend at least five. That's it. I'll
Wow.
never spend over five. So my dad's like, "Do you want to get like a pizza, $20 pizza or something?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm just good with give me that $20. I'm going to the Dollar Tree and I'm getting a bunch of mini chicken sandwiches for $1. They were $1. You put it in the microwave, you heat it up for 3 minutes. Next thing you know, it's this beautiful chicken sandwich. And my freezer was just stocked with them. But I bought chicken nuggets, Tyson nuggets. And I put them all in this paper plate, put them in the microwave, heated it up like 10 minutes or so. It was around when Fallout 4 came out. That's the time period
Oh
I can
yeah.
give you. So I grabbed the nuggets out of the microwave and I just grabbed this honey mustard and I would literally make it like soup where it was just nuggets floating in honey mustard. Like I would squeeze like it's giant ketchup bottle. So I would squeeze the shit out of it until I got like literally the whole paper plate was just honey mustard. And then there was just a couple of nuggets drizzled in. And I remember I was like eating, I was eating it. I was like, yeah, like, I mean, every bite was like the thing was soaked with just honey mustard. I was like sucking it off the chicken tenders. And I remember my buddy called me up. He's like, hey man, want to go get high? And I'm like, I got nothing better to do. I just ate. I'm good. Let's go. Dude, I got so high that I puked up all of that honey mustard, everything. And I've never had honey mustard since that. It has totally killed the experience for me. I just can't do it
Yeah.
anymore. And my body was telling me, it was like when weed was showing me that I ate way too much of that shit. It's not good for
Yeah.
me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like eating a pasta dinner. You don't care about it before, but you care about it after.
Yeah. When you feel it. When you
Yeah,
feel it in your body. My go-to sauce at McDonald's is the Big Mac sauce.
never had it.
So I Big Mac sauce with chicken nuggets?
I
Never
don't
ever?
I don't expand. I was never a big condiment guy, so I never expanded my taste past like ketchup or honey mustard.
Man.
Like when a dude comes in
The,
and goes, "You ever try a balsamic vinaigrette?" I'm like, "Go fuck yourself, man." Like, what are you, that's to me, there's a wealth class entitlement there. Where I'm like, I don't even know what a balsamic vinegar. You never had the Caesar dressing with the ranch jalapeno lemon sauce, and I'm like, where are you from?
Yeah,
What gold spoon are you eating off of?
I don't know, but like Big Mac sauce is like it's been established. It's out there, but to pair it with chicken nuggets just takes the flavor profile to another level. It's beautiful, especially with fresh nuggets.
It's kind of like Chick-fil-A with their Chick-fil-A sauce. Like that is like the have you ever do you even have Chick-fil-A down there?
No, we don't have it in Australia. And because they do their chicken and their fries in peanut oil, and my son's allergic to peanuts, couldn't go there.
You just don't you just gotta brush your teeth really well and then you can start kissing your kid on the head or whatever.
Yeah, but he can't eat it. So I can't
So
rock up in the restaurant.
your son's got to make a damn sacrifice. You get him a McDonald's meal and you head to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, true. But because we were like, we didn't know where we were in the States and where the nearest Chick fil A is, we'd have to drive out there and then go, all right, well, where's the next McDonald's at? And then like drive there. So we just kept it simple with like In and Out. But
Oh
how is
my
Chick fil
God.
A?
You want to talk about worst food experiences? In-N-Out is the worst for me. Fuck that.
In and Out was fucking like awesome, man, for
Dude,
us.
it's way too hyped. Everyone talks about In-N-Out's the best burger. I'm like, nah. I had two of their burgers and they were the smallest little things, like smaller than your vape, like just the battery part of it. I'm like, what is this? A slider? They're like, no, that's a burger. I'm like, it's not even that good. You got what? It's like eating a burger at White Castle. It's like too hyped up. I'm like, they're not that good. I've had a better cheeseburger at the best one I've ever had that has literally made me cry, where I was like, I think I was like 13 years old. We just got done camping. It was me and my dad, and we went to this old it was an old fire department building that was turned into a restaurant called Station 7, and it was the first time I've ever had a bacon cheeseburger. Dude,
Right.
I think about it to this day because they don't make it anymore. And here's the
Oh shit.
issue. Was it the place? Because they moved, they got a new location, but I went back there and it wasn't the same burger. So I'm like, maybe it was the chef. Like maybe you go to a food place and it's not just the place, like not the certain Denny's in Arkansas or something, but it's the chef that's making the food that's on staff.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. You wouldn't get that at a mass production burger house. You know what I mean? Like you would get 10 guys touching your burger. That's what happens at In and Out. Like they got a production line. So 20 people touch your burger before you even get it.
So
But
why do you like it? Why do you like that then?
because of that standard, because everyone has to know their station well. There's not going to be some person fixing 20 different types of burgers and then forget about something that you wanted in your burger. Like if I wanted animal sauce in there, like they would remember the animal sauce because there'd be one person focused on it at a time.
Dude, you just gotta fucking roll the dice, man. I hope you get like the chef on a good day. Like he comes, he's like, today was a wonderful day. I found $20 in my pair of jeans and I'm ready to make some burgers. And then you catch him on that one day where he's like, I just got into a fight with my wife. You know, she keeps doing this, she keeps doing that. It's like, oh, this is gonna be a bad burger. Like he's got some spite in his eyes. He's not gonna make a good like it's good when you're having sex. It's good to have like maybe spite sex or revenge sex or anger sex. Not when you're getting a burger. It's like, dude, he didn't even like I said no pickles. He fucking put everything on it. Like I didn't all I wanted was a plain cheeseburger.
So, which place are you going to? The place that you go, like let's say you go 5 days a week, the place that you get an average but passable burger every time, or you're going 5 days a week to the other place, and on one day the chef gives you an exceptional, like the best burger you ever had, but the rest of the days they're all shit.
Okay, does it have to be a I'm not a red meat eater, so does it have to be a burger?
Oh, chicken sandwich.
Oh, I fucking will tear down a chicken. If I had to choose the best chicken sandwich, it probably would be Chick-fil-A, but I'm always tired of going in there because I always run into like the basic bitches, I would say. Not like what you would think of bad basic bitches, but more like every time I walk in there, it's a bunch of kids from like school that are sitting in there on their phones and like just in line, like let me get a, and then they're sit like, oh my god, it's like I just I don't like this. I like choosing the low run restaurants. Like I don't ever really go out to eat, but if I was gonna choose like a great chicken sandwich, dude, I'm fine with McDonald's chicken sandwiches, even though they made me sick that one time. It's like I like that, but I like to go for the biscuits, man. Like I'm a biscuit boy. Like that's life right there to me is a nice creamy biscuit. Like you get that thing where it's
Hmm.
like you want to literally take it and then just jam it into the roof of your car so it smells like that biscuit all day, like a perfect air freshener. But
Yeah.
dude, that's either Popeyes or KFC, but I always like hitting KFC if I'm gonna go because it's Taco Bell, dude. You can't beat Taco Bell.
Yeah. We don't have Taco Bell here in Australia. We have one, and it just opened.
I feel so bad for you. You're losing Google. You don't have Taco Bell.
And we don't have biscuits at KFC.
Look, our nation might be on fire over here, but you guys are missing out on some important opportunities.
I know all these culinary masterpieces, and we get what do we get? Big Mac sauce. That's
Yeah,
what they're peddling over here.
you still got the McRib over there too, don't you?
It just came back.
Yeah.
Like just came back.
Yeah, they're doing a thing
I
for
don't like the McRib though.
I don't it's hard because I don't see the hype behind the McRib. I'm not a rib guy. So it's like I like fish. I like things like that, but I'll never get a McDonald's fish sandwich. That is fucking terrible. That is like that's not even fish. That's like you ever get the what's the Long Johns? Not Long John Silver's, but the Gordon's Fisherman, the dude with the yellow ass jacket where he looks like he killed a couple of people and lives in a lighthouse.
John West.
I guess it comes in like a
John
yellow
West.
box when you go to the store.
Ah.
I don't know if it's because I've
I
never cooked them right, but every time I cooked them, they came out really, really shitty to where like you would bite into it, it was like rubber, and you were like,
yeah.
So I just don't do
Yeah.
fish chicken sandwiches.
See, I don't eat fish at all. I do not like the texture. It mushes too easily.
Is it just fish or is it any type of seafood?
I think it's any type of food that has a weird texture.
Mayo?
But no, I like mayo.
I fucking hate mayo. That's a texture you
You
can't
don't like
trust, bro.
mayo?
That's a texture you can't trust.
This is true. I enjoy the taste of mayo. The tangier, the better. For me.
It doesn't taste like anything. It's like if you put silly putty in your mouth, it doesn't make sense.
That's the wrong mayo, man. That's way too creamy. You gotta get the tangy mayo. Or like try like get extravagant with like a sriracha mayo.
I love it when people
Sriracha.
when you have to modify its original taste to make it taste good. You've already lost the sales pitch. I'm just like somebody told me like it's an acquired taste. I'm like already saying that is an issue. Like you shouldn't have to sit there like you
Yeah.
ever the people that sit there and eat like oh what's that food that people like it's never good. It's like you're either a fan of sauerkraut or you're not. And then some people are like, well, I developed a taste for it. It's like, I get that, but you shouldn't have to sit there and develop a taste for it. And here's the reason like, I took so much advantages as a kid because you always get like chicken tenders and nuggets or something. You never truly expand off your horizons of what you like. And I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, because now whenever I go to a place, I have a rule of like, what would you order? And the woman's like, what? I'm like, what would you order me? If you were going to sit down and have a meal, what would you go with? And I want that. And she would be like, well, and I'm like, don't fucking tell me. Just grab it, get it, go give them that order. Then it arrives and it's like a fucking shark's asshole. And I'm like, didn't know you
It's the
served
most
this on.
expensive thing.
Yeah, didn't know you served this on the menu. And she's like, oh, it's my regular. And I'm like, a shark's legit asshole. Like, this has got to be illegal. They talk about shark fin soup. What is this? Like, this is probably the most precious part of the shark.
Yeah. Killed it on the poop deck as well.
Yeah, on the poop deck. Yep. While they were watching the Pirate Hub.
Yeah.
Because like there's a study out there where like because people always talk about like you got to know where your food comes from, you got to know where this comes from. There's a study of like them playing music to animals before they were slaughtered, doing all these things. I'm like, I wonder if that plays an overall effect into the meat. Like you've ever heard of Wagyu?
Hmm.
That's like meat that's been fed with like a special type of grass. They've been like cared for their whole entire like
Yep.
lifespan existence. And I'm like, does that really play into effect of the meat? Is it like, I guess the hormones and chemicals? Like if I gave you a steak
Yep.
right now, if I gave you a steak and
Hmm.
I told you this cow was the prince of cows. Like he had fucking everything handed to him. He was cared on hand and foot, pedicures every single day. Do you think it would taste different than if I told you this cow had the hardest fucking life, came from a broken home, Bambi style home life? Would you be able to taste like the depression in the steak?
Fuck. I think you would. And I don't know if it's been proven, but there was this barbecue show that I was watching, and then you get free range hogs, and then they compare that to slaughterhouse hogs. And because there is no adrenaline, because when they're in the slaughterhouse, they're on the line and they watch their brothers and sisters and whoever just like get killed, right? In front of them. So now they're scared. And because of that adrenaline, it changes the taste of the meat. So when you get a free range hog, it's different. The taste is I don't know. I don't know because I've never tasted it, but apparently the taste is different and better.
I want you to sell me a bunch of stuff with a science sales pitch. Try and convince me because like it truly is fascinating what we can do with science. The fact that like when someone is killed, they can check if the person like was murdered unexpectedly by testing the hormone levels in the blood, like to see if the brain released a certain chemical off at a certain time, like just see like, oh, this person was caught by surprise because their adrenaline glands hadn't kicked in, or if the person was on like a long like fucking running down the street for like 30 minutes while a dude's just chasing him with a knife. Obviously, his heart was under a lot of pressure. They can test for stuff like that. So I'm like, if you could
Yeah.
test, like, what's the easiest thing to test would be an animal. You can't really test fish on their levels, right? Because fish just don't give a shit about anything.
Apparently fish have nerve endings though, because they pull away from the hook. Is this correct? Or
Don't
yeah.
ask me. And we can't Google it in your country, so we have to Google it over here. But I like to look at that stuff. Like it is pretty fascinating. Like fishing, anything like that. Like I'm a big sea guy. You got to know where your food comes from, obviously. But like the fact that you're tossing in a bobber into another dimension where fucking sea creatures live, like that is so
Mhm.
fascinating to me. It makes me think of a different aspect of fish. Like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
there's just this underwater dwelling of creatures that are down there, but some of them are
Yeah.
like fucking monsters.
Yeah. That scares the shit out of me. Open water scares the absolute shit out of me. Even friendly creatures like humpback whales and killer whales, even though they're orcas. Let's call them orcas. Like it scares me that they could be right under my feet. So if something just nudges me, even if I go to the beach and I'm maybe 3 feet in and like something will like it could be seaweed brushes past my leg, I shit myself.
Well, you're in the
Open
water, so
water,
it kind of cleans it out.
yeah.
You said open water. I thought you were talking about the movie. I was like, here we go. Here's Rob's job. Rob is going to describe a movie to me based on, okay, if you were going to describe Jaws to me, how would you do it without giving away the title name or any key moments in the movie?
Mm,
We're going to call it Rob's
positive.
Rundown Review.
I would say that three strangers meet in a twist of fate to stop something that's destroying their town.
That's it.
That's it.
It's a
It's the
fucking
simplest synopsis.
short trailer.
Yeah, man. Has to be. Can't give everything away. Got to leave some mystery there.
It's also because I picked a movie where if you described anything else besides that, you couldn't because you
Exactly.
can't give it away. I like it. Look at it like what movies sound like they could be something that could happen in real life, and the closest one I can understand is The Happening. Like, imagine a world where plants said, "Go fuck yourself," and they start making you commit suicide all over the place. You're like, what It's like, yeah, that's probably more likely than not. Like, I mean, eventually, if animals don't realize, like, they just get fed up with our shit, plants are just going to be slow killing us, like releasing a pheromone chemical where we just start jumping in front of lawnmowers.
And that'll probably be triggered by like global warming or something. So the temperatures rise, and their response through photosynthesis, they've developed a gas that just neutralizes the human race.
Can you imagine if, like, we talk about, like you said, being scared of things in the ocean? What I'm scared of is, imagine if a horseshoe crab was way bigger than it actually is. That thing probably would kill the shit out of so many people.
Yeah, that's like a Peter Jackson, King Kong type fucking creation and nightmare waiting to happen.
They just start attacking people, be like, this is for my cousin that you flipped on his back and you tried to throw him in the water to save his life and he ripped in half, and they just stomp on you.
Yeah, can you imagine if you were driving down the road by the beach and you just think that this thing's a rock because it's like, basically just formed like that. And then it just fucking like whips out all of its talons and legs and shit like that. And it's this big fucking rock the size of an RV. It's a crab, sorry, size of an RV. You'd shit yourself.
I headbutted a horseshoe crab and I killed it on accident.
Was it accident though?
It
You did
really
headbutt it
was. It really
with
was.
the intention of.
No, I wasn't trying to headbutt it. What happened is, since I live in this beach town, we have a bay area, which is like waist deep. And my boss was on the boat. He was like, if I tie this rope to the back of this boat and you hold on to it and I just go full speed down this whole entire bay, would you hold on? And I was like, fuck, yes. So I thought it would be like waterboarding where you could like, you could like kind of ride on your stomach or something. It worked for about 5 seconds, but then eventually, like my like the strength and the pull of the water made my head go down, and next thing you know, I'm just being drowned underwater while I'm holding onto this rope. And I had the bay is it's only a couple feet, like waist deep, so I hit my face on the ground and it pulled. And as it was, so I was getting like a sand burn, and I head butted a fucking horseshoe crab and killed it. Because as soon as something
Holy
hit my
shit.
as soon as something hit my head, it was so powerful that I had to let go of the rope. And I came up and I was holding my head, and my head was fine. But then I just see this horseshoe crab like broken in half, and I'm like, like, is that me? And he goes, dude, you just killed it with your head. I was like, yeah. I was like, I feel tough, but I also feel bad because I know that's gonna be the reason I go to hell.
What'd be the other shit that you did?
No.
It'll be the horseshoe crab that they come back to.
I just feel
St.
like
Peter's at the gates.
no,
like, Rob, I'm sorry. It's that horseshoe crab back in 2018 that you fucked up with your head.
Jesus is sitting there. He goes, you know what? Out of all the animals you could have killed, I am very fond of horseshoe crabs, and you have murdered that horseshoe crab. So sorry, we can't let you in. It's like, not even all the countless like chicken nuggets I've eaten. Like, you know how many chickens I've probably consumed in my lifetime?
What if it was like, I'm reincarnating you as a fucking RV sized horseshoe crab? Can you imagine if you came back as your greatest fear? That's next level shit.
Would it be my fear though? Because it would be me. So maybe I wouldn't be afraid.
So that's how he gets you to like wise up to it and get past your fear.
Do you think reincarnation is a thing?
I think for certain people, some people have the belief that
Well, I'm asking, what do you believe? What do you think is the best possible choice? Do you think that there's a heaven? Do you think that there's just a non-existence? Do you think reincarnation's like that white light is coming out of the vagina into the world and the doctor's lights and all that? I've heard that theory before. It sounds plausible.
True. I think there's a heaven and a hell. I don't so much believe in reincarnation at all. What about you?
I'm open to all realms, but reincarnation is one where I'm like, I don't hope it's that one, because I'm like, what action? Who's judging your actions? Who's the person that's judging if it was a good or bad decision? Because there might be some things in Australia that are seen as like common sense or, good things. But over here, they might be seemed as bad. So I'm like, well, who's judging it? Like, oh, remember that time you let somebody cut in front of you at the grocery store and you didn't say anything? That's called being a bitch. We're gonna check that off, and now you're gonna be reincarnated as an ant. I'm like, damn, really?
And then someone's gonna pour like melted metal into the ant's nest, kill everyone in there just to get that like ant nest mold. Have you seen people do that?
Yeah. See, it's really hard because, like, I remember a theory that was tossed in my head a long time ago where it was like when you get to heaven, after a certain amount of time spent in heaven with your family and loved ones, when you're ready, you can choose to be reincarnated back onto this earth, but you'll have no memories of being up in heaven and you won't remember the family before you. And I was like, I don't ever want to lose the memories I have. Like, imagine like your brother's like,
Yeah.
hey, Robbie, what's up? And I'm like, who the fuck are you? It's like, what happened? It's like, oh, he was reincarnated. He doesn't remember you anymore. I'm like, I would hate that to happen.
But then what if you got back to heaven, right? You died twice. Do you get your memories all back?
It's a tough question.
Because like your family or the people that you know would just keep on growing.
Imagine if every time you died, your kid was born and you were just your kid. So your kid would have all the memories of you. So for your kid to be born, you would have to die. So your kid's birth starts right as soon as you die, and you just transfer into that. But you have all the memories into your son's. So technically, it's just you being born again, but it's your son, and it's your son because
Jeez.
you'll have a different hair, you'll have a different eye color based on your wife that you had the kid with.
So you'd just be stuck in that time loop constantly. That sounds like hell.
It does, doesn't it? Hell to
But
me
if
is
you were
like
given the
waiting at an Applebee's, but that does sound like hell.
but if you were given the choice, like if you don't die, your son doesn't live, then yeah, you got to do it.
Hmm. I've been
Unless you were just cold.
I've been like questioning things because I feel like with the amount of how like I don't like how there's definitive answers people have for things. I believe that there should never be a definitive answer, even if it's like scientific fact. Like here's water, it's H2O. It's like that's what we've designed that to be. It's not 100% the cure all end all. It's just what we've given it. Like time, it's fucking irrelevant. You're in a way different time zone than I am. So it's like it's all about where you're from, but we base it off. We needed to figure out a way to calculate the sun, its arrival, and it's also descent. So I'm like, that's not exactly like we could have at any point in history, like Stonehenge, for instance, that's a fucking clock. Nobody realizes that was its intent was a clock. They're like, it's built by the aliens. I'm like, no, it was probably built by a sculptor who was trying to figure out ways to calculate the sun based on its horizon point and the shadows being like a clock. So I'm like, imagine if it was nighttime and he started doing that instead of calculating it during the day. Then maybe AM would be nighttime and nighttime would be daytime. So I'm like, you can't have a definitive answer or anything. So the great question of things is like my buddy was like talking about how his kids, even though they are his kids, they were like frozen. They were all that type of stuff because they couldn't naturally have a kid. They had to do artificial insemination. And I'm like,
Right.
so because he was telling me one of his kids was born around 2006 and the other one was born a couple of years later, but it was from the same eggs, like the same exact time. They just grabbed a bunch of them out and then froze a couple. So technically, he's not really his little brother. He's a fucking clone of the other one. So I'm like, it's the same egg. Like it's like breeding years. If you're born in if you have a bunch of animals coming out of one, let's say if your dog has puppies, that's all from one litter. Then the next litter is going to be different. But imagine that the eggs are from the same litter, but one was just born 3 years later than the other one. So technically, it's a fucking clone.
Is it a clone or is it a twin? You know what I mean? It's
Oh, you can't do that though, because if you say twin, you're like, but you guys aren't born the same day. It's like, no, he was born 7 years later. Then you could have a fucking you're a triplet.
triplet.
All right. You're a twin, right? What are you?
No, we're all born like 2 years apart, and then like 7 years apart.
I don't fucking believe you because you all look identical.
Nah, man, 100%, 100%.
You look
I like to
identical to
think,
each other.
I like to think we're like pretty close in terms of like how we relate to each other. And like me and Dave, like we can get on the same wavelength a lot of the time and finish each other's sentences and think the same way. But yeah, like there's definitely that difference through the years.
Well, that wavelength that you guys can connect on, you could do that with anybody. It just depends on if you spend a lot of time with them. Like,
Yes.
you will start to notice when you get into a relationship, like eventually after being involved with them for a couple of years, next thing you know, you're picking up habits or you guys are kind of getting on the same level of things. And I think it just becomes a
Mm,
sense of comfortability. Like my cousin lived with me over the summer, but I didn't even know he existed. Like he's in his 30s, but eventually after a while we started like foods, everything, taste started becoming a little bit similar. Personality traits started becoming a little bit similar. I think it's because we were understanding each other. And he was like, "Yeah,
yeah.
there's a science study that after a while, like, does your like for instance, my idea was when a kid is born, they're given a name, but how many times do you come across a person where their name doesn't match their face?
Hmm. Actually, quite a few times because sometimes you get the name first, and then when you see the person, you're like, "Fuck, I didn't expect them to look like that."
So maybe that's not their destined name.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking how many times you see somebody's face and be like, you look like that's what your parents named you. It's like, well, maybe nowadays it might be different because people are naming their kids like fucking matcha tea and shit. Like they're not naming them normal names, but it's like,
Yeah.
but like back in the day, like did the baby like when you say he looks like a Jeff, or did his face just morph into a Jeff as he became older to better fit his name?
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe Jeffs have a certain quality then, or like a name has a certain quality, and you almost sort of have like this manifest destiny where yeah, you morph into the properties of that name.
Do you find it weird when you hear your own name?
Yeah,
Okay,
especially when someone has like the same name. It's like I don't find many of them.
you're talking to
And
one
then
right
all of
now.
a sudden there's like I know, but then like all of a sudden there's heaps of them. So then I find like all these Robs, and I'm like, I start a new job, and hey, that's another Rob. It's
I
like
was
how
like,
many fucking Robs are in this place now?
I was listening to a past episode of mine because like someone told me that it was like cutting out or something. So I was listening to it.
Yeah,
It didn't cut out, but I was listening to it and the guy said Robbie. And when he said that, my ears perked up. I'm like, nobody ever really says that. Like I don't really ever hear my name. Usually when I hear my name, I'm in trouble or something. Cause I usually never call people by their name if I'm not doing like a podcast. I'll be like, hey man, or how's it going?
yeah,
Like I even say it to like girls sometimes. They're like, did you just call me dude? I'm like, I call everyone dude. Like it doesn't,
yeah,
I'm not saying dudette. That sounds like an asshole type thing. Like I'm just gonna say dude.
yeah. It sounds like you're trying too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I only get Robbie because my name's Robin, and I got that because the umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, strangling me when I came out. But I only get Robbie when my mom's like really sweet with me, or she's asking me to do something. That's when I get Robbie.
I get that whenever I'm being yelled at, which is 24/7.
That's so weird, eh? Different ends of the spectrum. And we respond to it different ways as well.
Because eventually you always just get like, excuse, I get like I always get a hey. I love it when someone gives me that. Like, hey, it's like, you don't know my name, do you? They're like, no, what is it? And I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you. We're about to play Guess Who, motherfucker. Like, start taking shots. And like, I worked with this. I just saw this woman this morning too. I work with this. She works in the restaurant part of the hotel I used to work at, and like, I remember she was like, after working there for like 3 years, she's like, "What's your name? I always see you here." I'm like, "I'm gonna let you guess because people have said it around you. I guess you just never were paying attention to soak it in." And she goes,
Yeah.
Ricky. I'm like, not Ricky. She goes, Bobby. I'm like, it's Bobby. And then next thing I know, like, so for like the whole like rest of that year, she would just keep calling me Bobby. I'm like, hey, what's up? And then people were like, your name's Bobby. I'm like, just fucking go with it. So then I haven't worked there in like probably about a year now. I just saw her there this morning and she goes, Ricky. I'm like, close. Like it was just that whole entire like thing of like, you're still thinking like sometimes I play those little pranks on people and I don't realize I played those pranks. Like I had told somebody, because I had told a fellow podcaster that they were talking, they did an episode on Rick Moranis, that how he got punched
Yep.
in the face. Like, who would punch Rick Moranis? And I'm like, I saw it and I messaged him. I'm like, I know, right? He's like such a nice guy, but I don't like him that much. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because he dated my mom in high school. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he cheated on her. And I like created this backstory. Then
Whoa.
eventually, like he goes around and starts saying it. I'm like, oh fuck. Like you gotta pull the reins back in. Like, hang on a second. That was a joke.
Oh man, they didn't even stop and then fucking duff him out. They ran past and punched him in the back of the head as he was jogging or like walking his dog. Man.
Isn't that how you want to do it though? Like you don't want to walk up to him and be like, I'm gonna punch you, and then hit him in the face. You would walk up and just you got a punchable face and just elbow him right to the head.
But what was the thought process? That guy's like, he's walking down the street, he's got a coffee, and he's like, you know what? I feel like decking someone in the back of the head. And then he like builds up a light jog and then a sprint, and then he just runs past the nearest person. Boom.
It's the same thought process if you ever bring a vegan to a restaurant and they're staring at the menu for like an hour and a half. You just go pick an order, pick any fucking order. That's the same thing with punching somebody in the face. Pick a person, pick anybody, just sock them in the mouth.
I have never been in a fight. Have you ever been in a fight?
A couple of times. I just told you about it before we started. You were like, is it a birth defect? No, my nostrils closed a little bit more on one side because a kid, the way that he like, it was over something stupid in school, like fifth grade, like over like a basketball or something. And here's the funny thing of how small this world is. That kid hit me. Then eventually during the beginning of this pandemic, so like 15, 20 years later, I went to go pick up a lap machine, like one of those lap pull downs. And I was
Yeah.
this guy was like, I'm selling one. And we were picking it up, we were disabling it or disassembling it and putting it into the back of my car. And as I see the kid that hit me in the face in fifth grade popped up on the lawn, and I'm like, is it about to fucking happen again? But he goes, no, that's my daughter's husband. And I'm like, he's 23 like me. Like it doesn't, what do you mean? And he has kids and everything. He's completely changed his life. I'm like, that's just fucking weird how the world connects that I randomly go to pick up a fucking lap machine and the kid from my elementary school that caused my nose to be a little bit closed. And he did actually, the funny thing is when that happened, he told on himself, which I was like, what? Like it was over freaking like football or whatever it was. But like I get up like because he hit me and like I pull my head up and next thing I know, like teachers are coming over to me. I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, he just went and told on himself, said he hit you. And I'm like, did he mean it? He was swung at me. It was like when you're playing a sport, you get mad. Like you ever swing a bat at somebody like I'm gonna hit you. Then you really feel like shit when you actually hit them. Like you're trying to hit near them,
Yeah.
but they move into it. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, man, the guilt must have just crushed him.
Can you imagine
Are
the
you
guilt
right?
you would experience in fifth fucking grade over that, over
Yeah.
like a tag football game or some shit?
He must have had like the really really good upbringing where his parents were really wholesome and they were like telling him if you ever touch anyone else it's bad, and then he just let Tiger out the cage, smacked you in the face, and then he just like his whole world just collapsed in that second.
There was like a
And the
branch
guilt.
off where you see him in high school instead of like if he didn't apologize or didn't do any of that stuff, he's just doing heroin. Like he's still
Yeah,
suffering from the guilt and stuff.
there is stuff from like that time period in my life where I'm going through like third, fourth, fifth grade, where like I still think about, and I'm like, what the fuck were you even thinking?
What's one that you really like that keeps you up at night sometimes where you think back like, oh man. Like I think everybody has those like moments they reflect on something back in school where it's like, fuck.
So this one afternoon at sports, I don't know if I had like an unbelievable amount of sugar or whatever, but like we're out there playing sports, and the sports in my school was just basically you get the sand pit, you can run in the field, or you can just chill out in the concrete over there. What's your choices? So, anyways, in a weird turn of events, I had chosen all three. So I grabbed this rock, and this kid was like mouthing off, and I threw the fucking rock on his leg. Like it wasn't like a massive rock, and it wasn't a small rock either. It was sizable. And he cried, so I ran. And then I get into an altercation with another friend as well. And for some reason, like I said to him, you've got a fucked up family. This was weird.
How old were you?
I was maybe 9.
See, that makes sense though, because like when you're a little kid, you ever see like two little kids, like my nephew the other day, he's got a little brother, my new nephew, probably a couple of years under him. And
Yep.
randomly, out of excitement, the kid's just running around, like screaming. The other kid's just lying on the floor. He just takes his fucking heel and drops his foot down right on the kid's head out of just pure excitement. It happens all the time. Like little kids
Yeah.
they get so much like, like when you tell them they're going to Six Flags and their fucking mind explodes. They're like, and he just stomped on his head. And then, like, just what did I do? And I'm like, dude, you had so much excitement that it went through your body, channeled into your little foot, and you just brought your heel up and kicked that kid right in the eye socket. Like that's how fucking woo you were. Like
Yeah.
shit.
But like that's how you sort of like exert your excitement. It's nuts.
Now
Anyways, that kid
now we just funnel it
chased
into
me down.
masturbation.
That's it. You have to. You
Okay,
have to.
so the kid chased you down. What happened?
Kid chases me down. He tries to ankle tap me, which is like try like kick my leg that's on the backstroke behind my other leg so I trip over, right? But he kicked my foot into another kid's back. So the other kid was just winded. Like
Damn chain reaction.
yeah. It was nuts. Anyways, I got into shit for that. And yeah, that guilt was just like, what the fuck were you even thinking? That's too much aggression. Like, I don't know. Maybe it was one of those things in my life where like you gotta change from being that dude to like, being more civil.
Do you think you were smarter back in the day or smarter now?
I think I was emotionally smarter back in the day
I
than I
think.
am now.
What do you mean emotionally smarter?
Like I didn't let things get to me as much back in the day as I do now. But that's because of the guilt that I've just held for years, and now it's just built up to like, fuck your psyche up.
Do you think that's what it is? Or do you think that the fact that probably your only biggest problem back in the day was which fucking Power Ranger you wanted to be at recess?
Yeah, 100%. But I think the outlook that you have on your life changes everything. Like I could look at it like, yeah, my life's complex and like, I got a lot of shit on my plate. Or I can look at it like I get to do all these things. I'm alive today. I didn't die in my sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's either a blessing or a curse.
That's it. That question is a tough question for me because I think I was much smarter back in the day compared to where I'm at now. More on the sense of survival, I think,
Right.
which is like
But
I look back at myself back in the day and how I got through so much trouble. Like I would always have like, cause for a very long time, till I was like the age of 12, lying was just my forte. It was so much easier to get out of trouble than telling the truth. And eventually it just got
yeah,
so sick of it where I've just sworn off lying. Like I don't lie. I'll just tell you straight up how it is. If I did something wrong, I'll admit to it. I don't care. Um,
yeah,
but back in the day, it was like such a craft. Like my parents moved all the time. Like we always moved
Yeah.
every like 2 years. So eventually my school didn't have my address. So instead of sending a report card through the mail, they would have to give it to me. And then I wouldn't hide it. I just would forget about it in my backpack because the first thing I'm thinking of when I get off school is I want to play Xbox. I want to play this. So then I would just forget about
Naturally.
it until like the next day I'm at school and I'm going into my locker and I look and I'm like, oh, I was supposed to get this signed. So then eventually, like they would be like, all right, we need to have a parent conference because they would write it on the report card, but nobody would see it. And my parents worked all the
Yeah.
time. So it was just kind of me chilling at the house. So I was like, I don't fucking just forget about this. I'll wait till they get home and I forget about it. Um,
Yeah.
then I got they were like, we need to get your parents' number on file and also your new address. So I was like, okay, I don't know my new address, but I can give you a phone number. And this was like sixth grade. And I was like, I'll just give you a phone number.
Sure.
Like, what is it? And I just gave them my phone number. And then so whenever they called, I just never answered. So then eventually, like, it's like what? Like I'm in like 10th grade or something, and like they finally got my address somehow. I guess a parent came in to pick me up early and they updated it. But they were like, we need to have a conference. Like all the teachers need to talk to you about your son. He's doing not very well in school. And my dad's like, I've never heard a complaint before. And eventually I was like, cause you don't. You think I just got straight F's all the time and you thought no teacher questioned and was like, hey, maybe we should talk to the kids' parents? And they're like, yeah, I mean, it's still your fault for getting the F's. I'm like, yeah, but you dropped the fucking ball, man. Like, come on now.
Far out, man. We'd always get our report cards home. Like, as in, we'd have to take them home, but we never used to have to get them signed off
That's
ever.
it's because were they good ones?
No, not always.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd get like a really shit one,
I
and
remember when
even if
I remember when my dad was like, why aren't you bringing these home for us to look at so we can sign? I'm like, why would I show you something that I did wrong? Like, why would I want you to see that? Why would I ever want you to want to sign something that I did wrong? And it's like, but all the other
yeah,
kids bring their report cards home to get signed. I'm like, because they're all doing something right. You are more willing to share something you did correctly than you did wrong. And they're like,
this is true.
that's fucking, yeah, he's got a point. I mean, I can't argue with his logic. And the teacher's like, are you serious? This is what he does in school that gets away with all this shit. Like, I'm convincing with words.
But how did your parents respond to something good versus how did your parents respond to something bad?
I'll tell you this. I have a very big issue with the fact that people on the back of their vehicle have an honor roll sticker. And then that's not the issue, is the honor roll part. But when it says honor roll, then if you get it a second time in a row, it says again. So then you see the parents that have them all over the back of the windshield where you can't see out of the back, all over their bumper, all over everything where it's going up the side of their car. That person's an asshole. Now, when I remember one time my dad was like, that's it. Like eventually, like the punishment was this. I would be in my room with a mattress on the floor and no TV or anything. All my toys were taken away. So whenever I got a good grade check, I would get a bin of toys back. But the issue was, and this is like when I was like 7 or 8, the issue was the bin of toys I would choose. All the other stuff like Legos and shit, like Bionicles and all that, all the other shit to finish those pieces were in another bin that was in the room. So I had to wait a month to be able to get that bin. And if I messed up anything, it was all taken away. So eventually, yeah. So I remember one time my dad's like, you know what? I'll make you a deal. If you get honor roll before this end of this year, and we only had like it was the last semester, so I had just had to get it for like a couple of months. He's like, I will get you Call of Duty World at War when it first came out, when it was brand new. And I was like, are you serious? He's like, I swear to you. Shook my hand and everything. Next thing I know, dude, I tried so hard. I mean, star student. I was telling kids that were whispering to shut the fuck up. Like, I gotta study. I gotta get this down. I remember even the teacher was like, he became the best in the class. Like my science teacher was like, he's getting A's on all his quizzes now. And I'm like, yep, I'm just paying attention now. Like I'm pretty smart. I just don't. School to me was a waste of fucking time with a kid with ADHD. And eventually, I remember in my math class, she's like, you have a 59%. And I'm like, what? Oh, no, it was a 57, which is like an F. And I'm like, how can I bring that up? She goes, Rob, you did a lot. You brought it up from a 23 to a 57. in a matter of like 2 months. And I'm like, what can I do to bring that up the rest of the way? And she goes, let me see some of your papers. All this stuff, I barely had any of it filled out. She goes, just write this, write C for this, write D for this, and then I'll give you 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. So she would just do that with like 10, 15 different papers. Then eventually she goes, guess what? 63%. That's a D. And guess what? D is in diploma. And I'm like, does that mean I get an honor roll? She goes, you only need 1 D and you'll still get an honor roll. So I got honor roll. So my big thing was to get that sticker, that fucking sticker. Even if it said honor roll on the paper, I needed that sticker for my parents to be like, yeah, he fucking got it. Put it on the truck, everything. It was the last semester, and my teacher goes, good job, you got honor roll. I'm like, where's my sticker? She goes, we don't give them out in the last semester.
Oh,
I swear to you, dude, I was legit like, I'm gonna cry. It was 6th grade, dude. And I'm younger than everybody else in the school. I was put in a year early, so I was younger than everybody. So I was like,
oh shit.
I worked my ass off for that. And she goes, I know. Just we're gonna watch Bolt, the movie Bolt. I'll be right back, okay? And she comes back with the sticker and she goes, I know how hard you worked for this. I'll never shout out to Miss Masters. That's her name. She's fucking awesome. But she gave me that sticker. I was like, yes. And I got home, dude. You don't know how excited I was. I was like, Dad, guess what? He goes, what? I'm like, honor roll. Bam, here's the sticker. He goes, well, I am a man of my word. Went to Walmart, bought Call of Duty World at War. Then it was the next night after we put the sticker on the truck. Like I remember, I'm like, yeah, like finally we get to drive. I was like, let's drive this bitch around town. Like I was so happy. The next night, the truck got repoed and I never saw that sticker again.
Fuck.
And I was like, he goes, buddy, we can get it back if you want. And I'm like, don't ever expect me getting honor roll ever again. And that was like I never heard shit after that. Never, ever about honor roll. I get F's. He'd be like, why don't you try harder? I'm like, why don't you actually pay your fucking vehicle? And he was like, oh, really? Like, really?
Shit. That's fucking wild.
I mean, that's
See,
why. Oh, go ahead.
I never tried in school. Ever. Like I just did what I could, not the best I could. There's one time I did an assignment the night before, handwritten everything. It was supposed to be diary entries and shit from the perspective of like the Spartan War during the Battle of Thermopylae or something. I hand wrote because I read a book that I was actually interested in and I wrote it down. I got the same mark that my friend got who was working on his for like 5 weeks. That's like the hardest I tried.
I don't know how we got here from birth defects and then also from best places to go eat, but I fucking loved it. Like that was because I started thinking, I remember the important thing I wanted to tell you about birth defects before I think I went off on like a rant about my childhood trauma. But like, so like the nose thing, for instance, that was all from an incident when I was like in 5th grade. But you know what I found out who has a huge birth defect all from birth?
Is that?
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, you're right. 100%.
People
They
like,
thought he was.
well, people thought he had Bell's palsy, and he doesn't have Bell's
Hmm.
palsy. When he was born, coming out of the womb, back in the day, the doctor used forceps to pull the baby, and they
Yeah.
pulled a piece of his face, and it stuck down like that. So that was all from a doctor.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, the education system is bullshit. Medical system is bullshit. Nobody has definitive answers on anything. It's all fucking
No.
speculation and all just people doing their best to be a person.
Yeah. And you have no idea how much right place, right time factors into all of your big decisions in life
So I keep
and big
thinking maybe
wins.
I'm in the wrong place all the time because I haven't seen Bob Barker with that fucking $1 million check.
Well, you can't be in the right place all the time. You got
Sometimes I
to
feel
get
like
through
I'm
the
not
wrong
even in
stuff.
it. A part like there's that point, like 0.1%, you're in the right place at the right time. It's like I have not found that 0.1% yet. I wonder when that happens.
I don't think we're even in the right state a lot of the time. I think it's that one moment that we get, It's like fucking Avengers Endgame, where Doctor Strange is like, and Tony Stark is like, is this it? Could be like 8, what does he say? 18 million to 1. And this is the one shot.
Yeah, but I'd rather have a person tell me it's like some creepy old guy like, "What?" I'm like, so this is the moment. Instead of getting the teriyaki chicken, I got to go with barbecue. You're shitting me. This is the moment that's going to decide fate for everything. This old guy's like, one shot. It's like, so if I don't get this barbecue chicken, I'm not going to be Elon Musk money later in life. He goes, one shot. I'm like, but I really don't want to get the barbecue chicken. Like, that's the worst to me. I'd rather get the teriyaki. He goes, one shot. And you're like, all right, fuck. If I want to be a billionaire, I guess I'm getting the barbecue. And then you roll up to the window. She goes, what would you like to order? And you're like, look over at the old guy. And then you look back at the thing and go, give me a teriyaki chicken. He goes, one shot. And you're like, I don't give a shit. I'm not getting the barbecue. It's terrible. It's awful. No amount of money in the world is going to make me want to get barbecue.
And that's the day that the chef had a really shitty morning. His wife left him, took the kids, left him with an empty apartment, and now he's dribbling in the food and he's got Hep C.
So that was the one thing he was talking about. You could have had an amazing life, but now you're going to die at the age of like 30.
You're going to have to pump ozone into your body.
I don't think I've ever seen a person get so angry at fast food before. Besides, like I was in the car with my cousin and he was like, I want no pickles. I just want a plain cheeseburger. And they gave him, he's like, every time they give me pickles, dude, they didn't just give him pickles. They gave him mayo on his burger and he hates mayo too. So he was like, he literally opened it up, checked the sandwich, and it's in one of those little square fold containers, not like the wrapping of it. It's like it was a bit, I think it was a Mac or something. I don't know what he got, like a double quarter pounder or something. And he opens it up and he looks and he goes, dude, they didn't just not put pickles on it. They fucking put pickles on it and they put mayo. Like you have to go out of your way.
It's not even on the double quarter pounder.
Yeah. He's like, you went out of your way to put that on the sandwich. And he opened it up and you just saw his face go to like, if you just told him his whole family was just murdered with an axe. And he was just like, all he did was holding it in one hand, opened up his door and just stood up and like, just let the thing fall off of his lap into the fucking street. And he just got up and just started walking. I'm like, where the fuck are you going? We're like 8 miles away from home. And he just starts walking towards the house. I'm like, you were in the driver's seat. Like you were driving. So next thing I had to hop over and just start driving. He's just walking like mindlessly, like a man without a cause. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just not answering me. I'm like, get in the car. We're on the highway. And he's like, I'm like, you're that upset, really?
I get upset to the point where I want to pull like a McDonald's murder mission and just fucking drive my car directly into the front doors. Like, I don't, like, that's what's happening in my mind. Like, this constant chaos of, like, they fucked on my order yet again. I once ordered they call it a frappe, which is basically just iced chocolate with ice in there.
I know. I said to my grandpa, if you could order me one time, and he goes, "Can I get a caramel crepe?" And I'm like, now they're gonna shit in my drink. Like, you didn't know.
So I ordered it. Then they didn't get to me on the order because they were busy, and I was like, all right, cool. But like, I've ordered it, and then I go, fuck this. It seems like drive-through is getting like served quicker, so I go through drive-through, and then they tell me, oh yeah, we know you ordered it, but our machine's being cleaned at the moment. Like, get the fuck out of here, man.
So that's why when you told me in the beginning that you got a milkshake or whatever, I was like, I don't believe it, because anytime I've ever went, they always say it's broken or the machine needs to get fixed or cleaned or something.
Yeah, that's always the case. Far out. But yeah, I never show it. I get the shits, but then like I never get angry at the server.
Yeah, you don't fuck with people that control your food.
No, not at all. That's why, like, if someone's putting mayo on a burger that mayo doesn't go on, I'm never touching that. I don't want that burger.
My buddy did the smartest thing, which I consider passive aggressive anger. And he got an ice cream cone with the cone, like the ones you have to lick quick before it melts all over your hand. And he got one, and it was like, I don't know what what happened or something. It was a cracked cone the guy gave him, like one of the ones he just didn't throw out because he was too lazy. And it was melting all at the bottom and ruined like his car and everything when he was sitting down eating it. So he walked inside and got another one and told them what happened. And the guy goes, all right. And then my buddy goes, see, this is the part where I was expecting an apology. Like he looks over at me like this part where I was expecting an apology. The guy comes back with an ice cream cone. He's holding it out like that to where you can't grab it anywhere. Like you have to like try and get your fingers in his hand while he's holding it and grab it.
Yeah.
So what my buddy does is just grabs the whole top of the ice cream cone and his hand and breaks the whole thing in the dude's hand. The dude's like, what the fuck? He goes, that's what you get. And just walks out. I'm like, that is like, that's like jumping on a grenade, knowing that both of you guys are going to die. Like you just did that and you knew that you were going to be hurt too. And he goes, I don't care because I'm already messy. And I'm like, drop the fucking Terminator glasses and walk out. Like that was just fucking amazing.
You can never go back to that McDonald's again.
That's true. It's very true. I've never been back with him, but he probably has gone back. But that was like, I got it all on video and everything. I was like, this is like the fucking weirdest experience ever. Because the way he was like narrating to me was like, this is why he's like, this is the part where I was expecting an apology. And I'm like, what the fuck? Who is he talking to? Like, I guess the camera. And then next thing you know, he just does this. And I'm like, no way. And we put it on YouTube thinking it was going to be some major hit. And then after like a year, my buddy's like, I'm taking the video down because it's going to interfere with me getting a job. I'm like, how the fuck? Unless you're getting a job at that McDonald's, nobody's going to give a shit.
You know, that was something that was trending in Australia. Was this guy would go through drive-through, he'd order like 30-cent cone, right? Then he would grab it by the ice cream and then go, oh, thank you, and then drive off. And people would be like, the fuck?
Yeah.
He wouldn't smash it or anything.
I always like going to the drive-through of like if I go to a place if I'm getting something for somebody. I remember the McDonald's by my school was closing after like we just graduated, but they were closing. They would open for like that McDonald's was there forever. It was like where all the kids after high school would just hop over there and wait for their parents. Like some kids would smoke cigarettes and be all edgy and shit.
Yeah.
But we rolled up and there was only one woman working in there. And I was like, what are you guys serving? And she goes, all we're serving is coffee because everything else has been taken out of this McDonald's. And the only thing left is the coffee machine. And I'm like, so what are you doing? She goes, this is our last night open. Like the new one's opening up tomorrow. So that means like everything's already over there. And I'm like, okay, so can I just because I was just getting a nice coffee anyway. It was me and my buddy. I was like, let's just get iced coffees then, because that's what we'd get, iced coffee with like a shit ton of Splenda in it. It's so good. It took her 25 minutes to make these coffees where I was like, she never even asked for my money. When she hands this to us, I'm just gonna take it and drive off. And my buddy's like, I'm down with that. Like I'm game. So she shows up to the drive-thru like right before she's ready to open up the doors, drops both of them. And all you hear is her go, son of a bitch. And I just started dying laughing. Like, I mean, head into the steering wheel, hitting my head on the horn and everything. And then she goes, can you give me a minute? I'm going to make you another one. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I told him, I was like, dude, now we're about 35 minutes in. And I know it's going to be another 10 minutes before she comes back with our drink. So I was like, I'm really just going to drive off. And he goes, I'm telling you, just do it. She comes back, just opens up a door, hands it to me, goes, you don't even have to pay for them. I'm sorry about making you wait. And I go, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the night. And I just drove off. And it was the best damn iced coffee I have ever had. And I have not had one that matches since.
Man. I like when they acknowledge the fuck up and they're like, just take it. We had one where we drove through and they were like, did you get your burgers? And we were like, nah, not at all. We got burgers, but they weren't the ones that we ordered. She was like, all right, tell me which burgers. And we told her. And then she was like, and what about fries? Do you get fries? And we were like, yeah. And she was like, yeah, but are they fresh? I was like, no, not now. She was like, so she like goes, just drive through. Anyways, we get fresh burgers, fresh fries, and it was the best Macca's we ever had.
We're doing a huge
that's
ad
the
for McDonald's right now.
Yeah, big time. But like, it's all based on their fuck ups.
Yeah, it's the positives out of the bad shit that happens. Like when you used to get all
Yeah.
the items for the Monopoly game board, but you're always missing like some railroad to complete the map, or you would win like $1 billion. You're like, "Where's the fucking B&O?" You're like jumping in the back, like searching everything. Where's the B&O railroad?
Yeah, I'd never get that. I never got Monopoly. Never ever. I could never play it.
I was just happy when you ripped off one. It was like free drink. It's like, oh, I'm going right fucking back now. It's like, but you're home. It's like, doesn't matter. I'm getting a free drink. I'm gonna claim it before they say it's expired.
Yeah.
Just put it in
Man,
the
I never
freezer.
win anything. We always end up with like, because we'll get a bowl out of our cupboard and we'll start putting all the Monopoly stickers in there, and then we end up with nothing. My
'Cause
missus is there like scanning them and everything, like collecting them, and then we always end up with like half pictures.
it's all a scam. It's just like Willy Wonka and the
Hmm.
golden ticket. He probably didn't put any golden tickets out. And then suddenly somebody caught on to that and they're like, all right, shit, now we got to start putting out tickets.
You just didn't want anyone in the factory.
Why would you want some kids to ruin your? Did you see what happened once they got in there? They all fucking have a horrible defect now. You want to talk about defects? Imagine being a fucking made of chocolate and trying not to eat yourself.
Yeah, or a blueberry, and your
Or
period blood is blueberry concentrate every month.
yeah. Oh, no. No. I
Yes, I
just
took it there. God
I
damn
just
it.
thought of the Gushers commercial.
Willy Wonka was a slave trader that exposed it, and they ate it up. Those Oompa Loompas, like, what were they getting paid? You never ever seen them.
They
They
got
were just working in the factory.
they got paid in those beans. Do you remember? That's what they got paid with. It was like coffee beans or something they really loved, and that was known to their region. So he was like, I can give you a place where if you work for me, you'll get endless amounts of these.
Paid in drugs,
It was like
caffeine.
drugs to them. I mean, how different is
Uh,
Willy Wonka from El Chapo if you really think about it?
Willy Wonka's the OG El Chapo.
Well,
I watched this video where they said that Willy Wonka was a serial killer, and like because when Augustus Gloop goes into the chocolate river, and then the rest of the tour like sort of goes on, moves on, there's not a seat for him. He knew those kids were going down.
yeah, because they don't listen. That was the whole point of it, was to have patience and listen to your magical chocolate factory chocolatier guy.
To you, who would be the kid that you would punch in the face
Out,
out of that selection of kids?
out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka?
Ye- Both.
I don't really know the new one too much. I mean, not the new one too
The
much.
original.
I don't really know the original too much. I know the Johnny Depp version.
Uh,
So
okay, yeah.
it would definitely be that Violet Beauregard. Not Violet.
Fuck, I hated her.
The one with the squirrel, the one that was a daddy, I want it. I would have been like, oh, if I was your dad, I would have kicked you and pile drived your ass down into the freaking cement.
Veruca Salt.
Yes, that bitch.
Wasn't she a nasty piece of work?
Have you seen
For
them now?
me,
Have you seen them now?
no.
All the really, really like good looking ones are like drugged up and look horrible. Then Augustus, the guy who played the big fat kid, he's handsome as
Yeah.
shit. He's a male model.
Oh, shit. That's wild, man. Same with the kid from Stuart Little.
Yeah.
He is fucking tank now. Like he had the biggest like body transformation.
Just like Christian Bale in The Machinist.
Oh man, he was so skinny, his ass was falling out. Like his buttocks, like the muscle was falling out of the socket.
His yeah, he probably took years off his life doing that. But who would you punch in the
Yeah.
face at Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Mike TV.
Yep, he's the one I was talking about being handsome back in the day, and then you see him now. He's really drugged up, like bad, like missing teeth and shit. You're like, this is like Macaulay Culkin before he realized how bad heroin was.
Oh man, what happened with Macaulay? He was the golden boy. He was the one.
I
And then
wasn't
he
worried
just
about him.
dips out.
I was worried about his brother. His brother played in Signs. Imagine you come home after playing in the movie Signs and be like, I just started a movie with Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson. And like everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You're the star kid. You're the star. You're the star in this family. And then his brother gets fucking Home Alone, fucking meets Donald Trump, gets 3 other movies afterwards, and then becomes friends with Michael Jackson. You just shit on that kid's whole entire ego and life to the point where he's probably like doing meth in a basement somewhere. I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, that's why he had to wait. He waited like 10 years until he reemerged as like this up and coming actor, Kieran Culkin. Because then he did Scott Pilgrim, Igby Goes Down. Like he just started like showing up in all these different properties.
I didn't even know he
Yeah,
was in
I'd be
Scott
scared
Pilgrim.
too. And Scott Pilgrim, yeah. And he killed it in Scott Pilgrim.
Who was he in Scott Pilgrim?
He was his friend, his roommate.
Oh my God. Oh, holy shit, it was.
Yeah.
He's got the black hair. He would always have all those strange guys over. Oh my God. That's not.
Yeah.
How do you go from playing in Signs to being a gay guy in a movie about an arcade style thing?
That's the range. That's the range actors dream of.
I can't believe I just figured that out. Holy shit. That's crazy. Wow. Damn, Rob. This has been an eventful podcast.
Yeah. In more ways than one.
Dude, do you want to promote where people can find you? Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, sure. We're on Instagram and Facebook, so you can reach us at Smoke and Mirrors Podcast, and Twitter, where we're Smoke and Mirrors Oz. You can also catch us on YouTube under Logo Smith Media, and we're also on Spreaker. So if you listen to podcasts through Spreaker, we're everywhere as well. So if you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, whichever you choose, we'll be there.
And since I've only gotten 2 of the 3 brothers on here, if your brother David's listening, David's his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, David, get your ass on this podcast, man. Come on.